Hey everybody, it's Untitled Chapter and welcome back to my channel, and today we have a Crystal Warrior deck profile. I made Green Eyes earlier. Now it's time for me to make the next one, I promise, Crystal Warriors. So this deck is a Link spam deck, but also it has Synchro and Fusion and Xyz even. So it's kind of like a Firewall Dragon Dark Fluid, but it doesn't really have a Dark Fluid in it. So without further ado, um, let's just kind of get into the pros and cons of it. So pros, very resilient, has a lot of good monsters in the extra deck. It's pretty consistent on that. Um, One downside, however, about this deck is that it can brick. It can brick. If you draw like this, you need to draw like a certain like amount of cards typed basically in order to actually combo off. And if you don't, well, that's bad. But other than that, this deck is really good. It's really solid all around, and it definitely can win tournaments. Given the right matchups. Because again, this deck does have its fair share of like bad matchups. So let's just get into it. So first we have Crystal Warrior Achilles. If you special summon a Crystal Warrior monster from your graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand, but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only special summon one Crystal Warrior Achilles per turn this way. Once per turn, if you control a Crystal Warrior monster, you can target one card you control, destroy it, then special summon Crystal Warrior monster from your graveyard. This thing is basic extender. It's not like, super broken, because, you have to destroy a card you control, which can get dicey if you need to have a certain amount of, cards already on the field, and if your hand is not in the best situation, you might not be able to actually get this thing off at all. So, with that being said, this card is still good for the deck, and yeah, it's pretty solid all around. So next we have triple copies of Crystal Warrior Gamari. Gamari is the hand trap of the deck. Special summon this card by discarding one Crystal Warrior monster, and then when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, special summon this card from your hand. If you do negate the effect and destroy that card, then when your opponent declares an attack with all from a Crystal Warrior monster, while this card is graveyard, quick effect, banish it, negate the attack. Only activate one effect per turn, and only once that turn. So this card you normally like to keep in your hand. The problem of it is when you draw multiples, then it gets kind of bricky, because it is a only one effect per turn and only once that turn. So you gotta be careful when you use this. But all in all, this is a really solid card. Next we have one of the newer ones, Crystal Warrior Tennilla. And Hanalia here is if this card is in your graveyard where you control two or more Crystal Warrior Link monsters, special this card from your graveyard but banish it when it leaves the field. Then this card leaves the field, you can target one card you control, return to the hand. If you do, add one Crystal Warrior from your graveyard to your hand, but if it was sent to the extra deck, you can disturb one card your opponent controls. Only use each effect once per turn. This one's basically like recovery that the deck still really needed. As such, it is an important piece to the recover turn 2 board and all that sort of stuff. This card is also really solid. Then we have Katsana. Katsana is one of the play starters of the deck. If this card is normal special summon, activate one of the following effects. Add one Crystal Warrior spell/trap from your deck to your hand. Shuffle one card in your hand back into the deck and draw one card. Destroy this card, then send one monster your opponent controls the graveyard. Normally use it for the add one spell/trap effect, because that's what you need in this deck. You need some way to reach your really good extenders in the forms of spell and traps. Nelly Swordbreaker. If you control two or more Crystal Warrior monsters, special summon this card from your hand. It's an extender. If the only monsters you control are Crystal Warrior monsters, you can activate its effect and one Crystal Dragon from your deck to your hand, then discard one card. Also, you can normal summon Crystal Dragon monster edition normal summon / only gain this effect once per turn, only use each effect once per turn. When they had the Crystal Dragons in here, this thing was an important piece, but they decided to cut the dragons. She decided to cut the dragons, and just try to focus on the warriors instead. So this is basically an extender. Then we have another one of the play starters, Otaki of the Shining Lotus. If this card is normal special summoned, you can have one Crystal Warrior monster for your deck to your hand. If a Crystal Warrior leaves the field by an effect while this card is graveyard, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it's a field. Only use this effect once per turn. This card is good as a starter, just like Katsana. So you have 2 starters in the deck already, so that's 6 starters all around. You're going to be drawing one of these most of the time, and when you don't, there usually is a way you can get to them, which is good about this deck. It does have resilience that way, so yeah, honestly, Otaki and Katsana are some of the best monsters you can draw in the deck. Next you have Crystal Warrior Snowstorm, and if you control monsters or monsters you control or Crystal Warrior monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand. So go to special summon, you can add 1 level 5 or higher Crystal Warrior monster from your deck to your hand. If this card is used as link material for a Crystal Warrior monster, while all monsters your opponent controls are Crystal Warrior monsters, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, but banish it from this field. This searches out the Nelly. This thing is good as just a borderline extender, and then its play starter at the same time. So currently we have 9 play starters in this deck. That's almost a quarter of the deck, which is really good. Snow Casilla, Otaki, Katsana, they're the best ones that you can start with. Either one of them will start your combo. Then we have another extender, Crystal Warrior Whiteria. If you control a Crystal Warrior, you can special summon this card from your hand. If you would link summon a Crystal Warrior monster using this card as material, you can use one monster in your hand as link material, and then when this card is into the graveyard as link material, you can add 1 Crystal Warrior monster except Whiteria from your deck to your hand. This thing continues the plays that you started with, like, say, Otaki. You add this off of Otaki, you summon it, it's all good. So yeah, this thing is just really good for the deck. It's the combo and everything. So yeah, Whiteria is good, and also it's a tuner. Which means you technically can make the synchro with it, so you can do a few more other things than just link. And then we have Yakuza, also a tuner. This card is also treated as a Crystal Dragon while in the field and/or in the graveyard. When a Crystal Warrior is destroyed by battle or a card effect while this card is in graveyard, you can special summon this card, then immediately after this effect resolves, link summon a Crystal Warrior Link monster. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard as link material, for the link summon of Crystal Warrior monster, you can pay 1,000 life points to target 1 Crystal Warrior Link 2 or lower Crystal Warrior Link monster. In graveyard, special summon it, but it negates its effects and its attack becomes 0. You can only use each effect once per turn. This thing, you don't want to normally see this. You want to like send this to the graveyard or something, because this does not technically start any plays. It's kind of a recovery piece, needing for you to already have the links in the graveyard for this. So just use this sparingly, but it's still a pretty good card. And then we have the spells. We have Awakening of the Crystal Dragons. Target Crystal Dragon or Crystal Warrior monster in your graveyard, special summon that target. And then if a Crystal Dragon or Crystal Warrior monster would be destroyed by battle card effect, you banish this card instead. Only activate 1 per turn. This is just the monster born of the deck, and it's a protection. All in all, this is solid all around. It's a good extender and everything. Then we have Crystal Fusion. This is the fusion summon, so basically it has standard text on a fusion. Fusion summon a fusion monster. The most Crystal Warrior monster is material from your extra deck. Use a monster from your deck or field's fusion material, and you cannot special summon for the rest of this turn after this resolves. And then if a crystal monsters you control leaves the field by an effect, banish this card from your graveyard, add 1 Crystal Dragon or Crystal Warrior card from your deck to your hand. Only use each effect once per turn and only once that turn. This is good to get the fusions out, and the fusions are pretty good. Yes, the special summoning restriction is tough, but at the same time, this card is just good regardless. You can even dump it off of like Foolish Burial Goods or like just another card. Just send it to the graveyard. Maybe you need discard fodder. Send it to the graveyard that way, and then you get the other effect from the graveyard anyway. But the fusion is good. The fusion's good. The fusion's worth running. So all in all, solid card. And then we have quick play spell, Crystal Warrior Descendants. Take 1 Crystal Warrior Crystal Dragon monster from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard, and you must control a Crystal Warrior to activate and resolve this card. Only activate 1 per turn. This card, Extender. Extender, extend, extend. It's the name of the deck. It's still good. This deck is really consistent in that way. It has a lot of extenders. The problem is when you don't actually, like, draw a start. And so next we have Crystal Warriors Reunion. Continuous spell card. During your main phase, you can immediately, if this effect resolves, normal summon 1 Crystal Warrior monster in addition to normal summon. When a Crystal Warrior Link monster that is Link 3 or higher leaves the field as Link material, target one level 4 or lower Crystal Warrior monster into graveyard special summon that target, and if you do, banish one random card from your opponent's hand, only use each effect once per turn. The second effect of this card, funny enough, almost never comes up at all. You never ever see this effect right here. And when you do, it's rare, but it's still a really solid card all around. And then we have Crystal Warrior Training Shrine of Dragonic Balance. This card is activated. You can add one Crystal Warrior monster you deck your hand. You can only use this effect once per duel, and once per chain. When your Link will summon a Crystal Warrior monster, you can discard one level 4 or lower Crystal Warrior or Crystal Dragon monster. Special summon level 6 or lower Crystal Dragon or Crystal Warrior monsters with different names to zones that Link monster points to, except the monster discarded by this effect, with their effects negated, and you can only activate this once per chain. This one is another extender, but like also it pays off. It gives you huge payoff for actually holding off on your abilities until you summon something with like 3 down pointing arrows. Speaking of arrows, Judgment Arrows. Yep, the thing from the anime. You can only activate this card if you have a Link monster that points to a spell/trap zone. You can Link summon 2 main monster zones this card points to. If a Link monster this card points to battles, its attack becomes double its current attack during damage calculation only. When this card leaves the field, when it points to monsters, destroy all those monsters. You can only control 1 Judgment Arrows. Judgment Arrows, this is the main OTK portion of the deck. It's good, and it's pretty consistent at the same time. They have a couple cards to be able to search it, but I believe they're in the side deck now. But either way, this is good. Then we have Monster Reborn, standard, Crystal Backlash. This is the counter trap negate of the deck. It negates and shuffles, and then your opponent can activate cards with the same name as the shuffle card for this turn, and like normal, only activate 1 per turn. So pretty standard stuff, it's really good. And then finally, Crystal Warrior Snowstorm Veil. Activate only if you control a warrior type monster. Target one monster on either player's field and one monster in your opponent's graveyard. Banish those targets. Then if it was a monster special Yakuza, you can set this card again instead of sending it to the graveyard, but banish it when it leaves the field. Only activate once per turn. This is like Ice Dragon's Prison, but archetypal. Enough said. So now for the extra deck. We have Crystal Warrior Conqui. Conquiki here is a 2+ Crystal Warrior monsters. And it cannot be targeted by card effects. If a Crystal Warrior Link monster that is Link 3 or higher is a Link summoned while this card is face up on the field, you can target 1 card your opponent controls to negate its effects to the end of the turn. Then when your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can discard 1 card from hand, negate the effect. This card is good. It is a when effect, so that's kind of funny. It technically can miss timing, but other than that, yeah, this is a good target. Like I said, the fusion's pretty good to go into now, which is why I say sometimes it's worth it to actually just end on this. And also technically, you can just do the Link monsters, do anything, and then end on this by activating your fusion at the end of the turn. Then you don't have to worry about the special summoning because you don't need. Really, really, DB? Oh my gosh, DB just crashed. Wow. Wow. Guys, I'm doing a deck profile and DB crashed. What does that say? Oh my gosh. I've never had that happen on me before when I'm doing one of these. Oh well. Alright. Let's continue. So yeah, all in all, good card. Synchro Monster, Crystal Warrior, Tennilla. If this card is Synchro Summon, oh wait, generic materials. This card is Synchro Summon, you target one Crystal Warrior Link monster in your graveyard, equip that target to this card, and if you do, this card gains half of the attack of the monster equipped to it by this effect. In the quick effect, you can send up to 3 Crystal Warrior monsters you control the graveyard, and until the end of this turn, negate any activated effects of monsters your opponent controls up to the rank rating of the equipped monster -1. Only use each effect once per turn. So basically, if you equip a Link 3, you negate the next 2 card effects, monster effects that happen. And yes, it's mandatory that those effects get negated by it. And then we have Crystal Warrior New Age Orcasaurus, 2 level 12, 2 plus level 12 warrior type monsters. You can also exceed summon this card by stacking. The wording on this card needs a little work. A Crystal Warrior exceeds monster that's battling. This card is exceed summon until the end of the turn. Your opponent's monsters with attack equals to their defense to the end of the turn. So basically, it's Goki the Great Ogre. And then, if a Crystal Warrior monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can attach one of these beats to this card instead. If this card isn't targeted of an effect, quick effect, you can negate the activation. If you do, attach that card to this card as exceed turn. Only use each effect once per turn. This thing is good, but the thing about it is that it doesn't have target protection, or it doesn't have any sort of protection, so it is actually fair. So yeah, honestly, good solo card all around. Good thing to go into on top of this with no material. Oh, Surgery. This is the negate of the deck. This is the Xyz negate. Card effect is activated. Control Crystal Warrior monster attaches these material, negate the effect to destroy it. It's technically not a quick effect, and it can miss timing, but this is a card effect activation, then normally it won't miss timing. And then if a Crystal Warrior monster you control uses your break prone card effect, attach on a good control this card instead. This card's good. Doesn't get around it. It's a warrior type rank 4. It's good all around. Then we have the only Crystal Dragon in here, Velkhana. 3 plus Crystal Dragon and or Crystal Warrior monster. Unaffected by your card effects except its own. Only control one of these things. This card's original attack becomes equal to the amount of monsters you link summoned this card times 1,000. Once per turn, you can target 1 Crystal Warrior and 1 card your opponent controls. Special summon the first target with this effect negated until the end of the turn. If you do, send the second to the graveyard. Also, this is supposed to save Crystal Warrior in your graveyard, by the way. You can always use effect once per turn. This is the towers of the deck, and normally you can continuously get this thing off with about 3k attack, so it is technically beatable. I've not seen it with more than 4, though, because it is kind of like a thing where it's like, you get it with 3, but like, I've never seen this thing with 4 or more. Then we have Docchini. This card is also treated as a Crystal Dragon monster and is also Dark Attribute. Its card's Link Summon, you can target a Crystal Warrior Link monster on the field, special summon from your graveyard 1 Crystal Warrior Link monster with a different Link rating and name as a target. While this card is in your graveyard and you have 1,000 life points or less with no monsters on the field, banish 2 Crystal Warrior Link monsters from your graveyard, special summon from your extra deck 1 Crystal Dragon with equal Link rating as the combined Link ratings of those banished monsters. This is the 3100. This is basically a wall almost, but also it's good for just like, I guess, last minute comebacks, if you will, if you happen to have 1,000 or less life points. So yeah, that's just kind of there as a bonus. The first effect is what you mainly use it for. Then we have Crystal Warrior Elizoni. 2 plus Crystal Warriors at Link 4. It cannot be targeted by card effects except by a Link monster. You can target 1 Crystal Warrior Link monster you control, then target monsters your opponent controls up to the Link rating that target has. Destroy them, and if you do, inflict 400 damage for each monster destroyed by this effect. If this card battles an opponent's monster during damage calculation quick effect, you can target 1 Crystal Warrior Link monster you control. Until the end of the damage step, that target gains 500 attack for each of that target's Link rating, and you can only use each effect once per turn. This is like part of the get over anything sort of deal. If you had this in Docchini, then you can give Docchini 2,000 attack for a grand total of 5,100, which is good. And then we have Crystal Warrior Galena, same Link 2. If this card is Link Summoned, you target 1 Crystal Warrior in your graveyard, special summon that target, and 1 Crystal Warrior with a different name from your hand to a zone this card points to. Quick effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard, the target 1 Crystal Warrior Link monster you control. That target can make a second attack this turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. Again, this is Extender, but also it's part of the OTK variant of the deck, which is quite consistent. Then we have Jiyushi. While this card is on the field, if it is also treated as a Crystal Dragon monster. Then, while this card is co-linked to a Crystal Warrior, your opponent cannot target other monsters you control except Crystal Warrior Jiyushi for attacks. It's supposed to say for attacks. And then when a Crystal Warrior is Link summoned, when this card is in the graveyard, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. Funny enough, this thing with Judgment Arrows can cause a attack block, which is very funny. And then we have Mary. This card is Link summon. You can have one Crystal Warrior Fusion spell card from your deck to your hand. Then when this Crystal Dragon or Crystal Warrior is special summoned to us on this card points to target Crystal Warrior monster graveyard, special summon that target. But negates effects, and then you cannot special summon other monsters for the rest of this turn except Crystal Warrior Fusion monsters from the extra deck. And then we have Messina. This card is Link Summon. You can target one other Crystal Dragon and a Crystal Warrior Link monster you control and cards your opponent controls on your opponent field equals to that target's Link rating. Return those targets to the hand. If this card attacks an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can target one Crystal Dragon monster in your graveyard. Equip that target to this card, and if you do, this card gains that monster's attack. Then, and if you do during the end of this turn, destroy that equip card. Only use each effect once per turn. This is another one of the OTK cards. Basically, if the first OTK card didn't work, then you have about 6 more that you can do stuff with. So yeah. Then we have Crystal Warrior New Beginning Crystal. 3+ Crystal Warrior monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Quick effect, you can target one Crystal Warrior monster you control. It gains 300 attack until the end of this turn. Then, this card can attack twice on monsters. If a monster is special summoned to its own, this card points to you can add one Crystal Warrior monster from your graveyard to your hand. Only use each effect once per turn. This is one of the newer ones, and it's meant to be a recovery piece, which is, the deck needed this. And I'll get to the next one, this one, a bit later. So next we have Crystal Warrior Yukina. And then while this card is co-linked, your opponent cannot target other monsters for attacks except this card. See, this is what I was talking about with Jiyushi. Technically, this causes a lock with Judgment Arrows. And then you can discard one card, special summon up to 2 level 4 or lower Crystal Warrior monsters from your graveyard, but banish them when they leave the field. And then you can only use each effect once per turn. It's an extender, you go into it pretty often. And then we have Crystal Warrior Galena, the Great Defender of the Sea. 3+ monsters, including monsters special from the extra deck, cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects. When this card is lead summon, you can negate the effects of all other monsters on the field except cards this card points to. And if you do special summon one level 8 or lower dragon monster from either graveyard with its effects negated. This card is destroyed by battle, you can start one Crystal Warrior Link monster graveyard special summon the target, but negate its effects and its attack becomes 0 until the end of the turn. You can only use each effect once per turn. This is another one of the boss monsters. This is actually a Link 5, which is good. It's over and all a good end piece to do, and if not the first end piece, then it can be the second end piece. Finally, the one I said get to later, Crystal Warrior Tennilla. Yes, this is a Link 8. 1+ monsters, including a Crystal Warrior Link monster, must be Link summoned. You cannot special summon this card by other ways. This card gains attack. This card's attack becomes 1,000, equal to the number of crystal counters on this card. Cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. If this card is Link summoned, you can place crystal counters on this card equals to the Link rating of the used material of the monster with the highest Link rating used for this card. When an attack is declared involving this card, you can remove one crystal counter from this card. You take 0 battle damage. After the damage step, if this card battled, you can banish all monsters your opponent controls, and if you do, inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each Crystal Warrior and Crystal Dragon Link monster in your graveyard. This is the boss. Enough said, Link 8, really good. Next, we have the side deck. We have Crystal Warrior Harmony, cannot be normal summon set, special one by controlling up to 1 Crystal Dragon and Crystal Warrior monster. Neither player takes damage from attacks involving this card. This card is also treated as Dragon type, and then its card is special summoned, and your opponent has more cards on the field than you do. Activate this effect, your opponent sends cards to the graveyard until they have the same amount of cards on your field. This card leaves the field, destroy 1 card on the field. You can only use each effect once per turn. Destroy 1 card is mandatory, so technically if it's turn 1, you have to destroy something you control. Then we have Whiteria, and then Yakiza. Then we have Crystal Warrior Duke, Hunter of the Abyss, generic. If this card is synchro summon using a light attribute monster, synchro hero, you can target up to 2 cards on the field, destroy them. If this card is banished, except during the damage step, you cannot special summon the monsters for this turn except light monsters, and target one banished monster. In other players' banished zones, special summon it to your side of the field, but negate its effect, you'll use effect once per turn. Oh, by the way, Banish with 2 ends, person making these cards was very tired when they were making a couple of them, so. Then we have Crystal Warrior New Age Tokshina. 2 level 6 warrior type monsters. You can also summon this card by using 1 Crystal Warrior Xyz monster you control as material, and then transfer materials. If this card is Xyz summon, you can target monsters in the field equal to the amount of Xyz materials this card has. They gain 300 attack until the end of the turn. If they do, your opponent's monster loses 200 attack for each monster. Quick effect, you attach up to 2 Xyz material from this card to target Crystal Warriors in your graveyard up to the number of Xyz material detached in this card, special summon them, and you can only use each effect once per turn. This is in the side deck mostly because you don't get the Xyz monsters out continuously and enough, like consistently enough, to where it's actually like relevant running this main. And then we have Crystal Warrior Telemashi Requiem, 2 level 4 monsters. This card cannot be destroyed by card effects while this card has an Xyz material attached to it. If a Crystal Warrior monster is special summoned, you can attach one Xyz show from this card. If you do, special summon Crystal Dragon monster from your hand with the same level as a summoned monster. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard and target one link monster on the graveyard, special summon it, but negate its effects. This card you almost never side in, but also sometimes against certain matchups, this is needed. And then we have 1 access code, because again, links, even though again, I think like the most you have is like 3 attributes. About 3, yes, about 3 pop access code. And then we have Crystal Warrior Blood Julie. 2 crit plus Crystal Warrior monsters. You can only link summon Crystal Warrior Blood Julie once per turn. And then once per turn this card is link summoned, you can target up to 2 Crystal Warriors in your graveyard special those targets, but negate their effects. This is an extender. Why do you not go into this? Well, because the arrows, as you can see, are kind of awkward. Then we have a link 1, Crystal Warrior Dragonic Oriole. 1 Crystal Dragon or Crystal Warrior monster. This card is link summoned using Crystal Warrior Oriole as link material. This card gains its effect. You can only use its effect once per turn. Target 1 Crystal Warrior and your graveyard special summon level 4 lower Crystal Warrior with different name as that target from the graveyard. Banish it when it's a field. Oriole is not in this deck anymore. This card sometimes is just put in because sometimes you need a link 1 other than like Melee and stuff like that. Speaking of Melee, when Melee, this card is link summon, you can special summon Crystal Warrior monster from your hand to zone this card points to. If your Crystal Warrior link monster you control would be destroyed by battle, you can bend this card instead. You can only use each effect once per turn. This card is just the play starter. Why is it in the side deck? Well, because in this version of the deck, you actually can get multiple monsters in the field, which means this card isn't needed as much. Then we have 1 Crystal Warrior Opaketi. 2 plus monsters. When your Crystal Warrior destroys an opponent's monster by battle, target 1 card in the field, destroy it. If this card is extra linked, you can discard 3 cards, inflict 3000 damage to your opponent, and you can only use each effect once per turn. This card is just with the extra link potential. It's not actually needed. And normally you don't go into the extra link unless, like, your opponent's playing like pure links, in which case go ham. 2 Crystal Warrior Queen Adria. Crystal Dragon and Crystal Warrior monsters this card points to cannot be destroyed by card effects. If this card is linked summon, you can have 1 Judgment Arrows from your deck to your hand. And once per turn, you can summon Crystal Dragon monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, this card's name becomes Sent Monsters. This card battles with a different name from its original quick effect. Target 1 Crystal Warrior link monster you control. And spell starts trap cards up to that link rating. Return those targets to the hand, and if you do, this card can make a second attack in a row. Only use effect once per turn. This card searches Judgment Arrows, but it's a link 4, so it's not like super needed, because like a link 4 for Judgment Arrows sometimes is just a little bit too much to ask. Then we have 1 Crystal Warrior Kutari. Once per turn, if a monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or card effect, you target the card this card points to, or this card. It gains attack equal to half the attack of the destroyed monster. When your opponent activates an effect that targets the card you control, She must discard points to indicate the activation to destroy it. It's like Decode Talker. And then finally, Crystal Warrior's Final Saga. Activate this card when your Crystal Warrior monsters trip a battle or by an opponent's card effect. Banish all monsters on the field. If you do, inflict 800 damage to both players for each monster banished by this effect. If your life points is 1,000 or fewer, you can banish this card from your graveyard, special summon a Crystal Warrior monster from your graveyard. But if it leaves the field, you lose the duel. This is literally a kind of like anime-esque card, if you will. Basically, like, oh hey, I'm putting all my hope into this one final monster and stuff like that. So this card, for that reason, is fun, and also it's a really strong battle trap at the same time. And battle traps are needed to be strong in order to actually be relevant. With that being said, though, that's it for the deck profile. Now for my final thoughts on this deck. It is an overall solid deck that has been put a lot of work into. Yeah, sure, some of the PSCT may need a bit of work, but at the same time, we all make mistakes on that. Overall, I really like the deck. It's good play starters, good extenders, good spell cards, good boss monsters, good OTKers. Yes, it can brick. It can brick, but any deck can basically brick at this point. So, yeah, with that being said, that'll be it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I am Digital Duke, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.